Hello, my name is Nelson Mandela, and I am here today to tell you that nothing looks more important than equality. Equality is having the same rights and liberties no matter what sex, religion, or race you are. I believe that equality is the most important thing a person can have. If you aren't equal with the man next to you, then how can you succeed? I was born in South Africa. I grew up in a small town raised by my mother and father during a time of white minority rule. When I was 9, my father died, who left me to his friend to raise me. That day changed me greatly. I lost both my father and mother. That was when I realized that life doesn't always go your way. When I was 10, I started school, the first in my family to do so. I was taught by the elders of my tribe. I looked up to them. In school, I learned about the injustices done to people like me, and then the fairness of white rule. I knew that I had to contribute to the change of South Africa. At the age of 16, it was time for me to undergo the becoming of a man ceremony of my tribe. There we were promised a speech telling us how to succeed in the world by the chief elder. Instead, he told us, you have no chance of succeeding because whites will rule over you and make you do mindless chores. After hearing this, I believed I had no choice but to prove him wrong. 2 years later, I set off in the world and went to college at Fort Hare University, the equivalent of Harvard in South Africa. There I became a school leader. However, shortly after I was expelled by the White Dean because I was distracting other students in peaceful protests. There I experienced the first acts of racism against me. After getting expelled, I joined a group that called themselves the African National Congress, or ANC. The goal of ANC was to use peaceful protest to persuade the government into supporting equality. There I excelled, gradually moving up the ranks. While at ANC, the leaders eventually began to use my ideas of armed protests instead of peacefulness. We decided to do this because peaceful protests had no impact on the government. That was when everything changed for the South African government. About 2 years later, during a meeting for ANC, 10 of my fellow peers and I were arrested for treason and other charges against the South African government. After an unfair trial, my peers and I were transferred to Robben Island Prison. I stayed in prison for 27 years, but surprisingly, I was still an icon by the time I got out. While I was in prison, there were protests to free me, and eventually I was offered a deal. I could get out of prison if the ANC and I would stop armed protests. I refused that offer. My country's release from the government's shackles were more important than my release from prison. A little bit after, I was released because of a new president, F.W. de Klerk. He believed the same way I did. In 1994, South Africa held its first democratic election. Due to public demand, I ran and won. I was president for 5 years with F.W. de Klerk at my side in the first deputy position. During my presidency, I gradually helped South Africa transition into a democracy. After my term as president, I still like to be an international presence throughout the world. Preaching equality is the most important thing to possess in life, which is what I'm doing today. Thank you.